scratched our head? Are we recording?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ow! I did hit my head. Yowzers. Hey, what are you? What's
Well,
your bit?
you ruined my bit by hitting your head on the ceiling.
Yeah, maybe
Save
that's
it for
the bit.
later.
No bit now because I hit my head.
That is the bit.
That's the bit. All right. Zowie. Wow! Holy shit! It's a new season of anime now.
Whoa.
When did that happen?
Time continues to fly.
It's beautiful. I mean, no one watched the last season of anime except for Tower of God, I guess.
Good choices all around.
Some people watch Gleipnir. We finished Gleipnir.
We finished Gleipnir.
Here we are, summer 2020, and the anime's looking bleak. Obviously, COVID has a big deal to do with that.
Yeah.
Um.
Can I just unpopular opinion?
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with this small anime season.
Oh, completely. Yeah, I would because we're gonna end up watching the same number of shows we watch any other season.
It just weeds out all the fucking garbaggio that we would have to sort through in any other season.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. We're gonna probably watch two shows, maybe try out a third or a fourth, but I doubt it.
We always only ever watch 2 shows.
Yeah, we can only ever maintain 2 shows anyways. We already
when
see
you're looking
2
at
shows that are
a
okay.
90 show season,
Yeah.
okay, 90's probably hyperbolic, but a huge season versus a 15 show season,
Yeah.
I really have no problem with the 15 show season.
But, it really narrowed down the choices of what we had to watch. It was just like, all right, there they are. There you go.
Yeah. It's like just a few less flavors of garbage.
It's just like,
to sort
I guess
through.
it's that all the same shit is there. It's just there's only one of each type of thing and not
narrowed down.
2. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like how when you go to a specialty restaurant and they have, one of each kind of the specialty dish. So there's no waffling about, if you want ramen, there's the one ramen that they're famous for, and that's it. That's your choice if you want the ramen. And I think that's not bad.
Yeah. So anyways, without further ado, we just watched The God of High School. The new Crunchyroll X Webtoon original series based on a manhwa.
And the last time we watched one of these, that went really well.
Yeah. I mean, right off the bat, I gotta say, enjoyed it a billion times more than Tower of God because we hated Tower of God.
Gotta say, of the Crunchyroll webtoon crossovers with God in the title, this is by far seeming to be the better of the two.
I mean, Studio Mappa already, even if the show isn't good, they have a bar of quality with animation that, they tend to meet, Maybe not always, but they generally, when you see Mappa's name on it, you can usually count on the animation at least will be good. And that it might be an above shit. It's never shit.
I guess you can say it'll probably look better than an A1 show.
Yeah, it won't look terrible when it's Mappa, generally. Generally, their shows look pretty good. As far as, think about what looks terrible. You're not going to tell me any of their shows look as bad as what is the worst.
It's better than Dokukobo. How about that?
Yeah, you got to think about how bad this shit gets. It's going to be generally better than that. Generally looks, this show looks pretty good. It looks like they pulled out all the stops and tried to make something that is visually appealing. They know this is going to be a hit. They know they're going to have to,
and of course, bring
it A game.
We're basing this on the first episode,
yeah.
And the first episode always has the best production quality that they had available to them at the time. They bring their A game.
Yeah, the big question with this season is going to be how will the shows hold up over time, because we don't know what could have been produced before COVID-19 fucked everything, and sort of if that's going to have an effect episode to episode, if these things are just going to fucking shoot down in quality, which could easily happen for any of these anime as I don't know if this will come out before or after our review of, what's it called on Netflix, Tokyo Sinks 2020,
Japan
but
Sinks 2020.
That was an anime that was very clearly heavily affected by the quarantine and COVID. So we don't know if these new shows are going to see a steep decline because the trailers for God of High School have been coming out for months.
That's very true.
First
this
episode,
has had a project with big hype.
Yeah, the first episode, most of that has probably been done for months, before any of this even hit, because we've been seeing God of High School trailers since the start of last season. I thought that was going to be a last season show, And we were seeing those trailers alongside of, like, Tower of God coming out. So we don't know how much of a steep hit this is going to take. But that aside, you know, we're just talking about impressions based on the first episode.
This is first episode impressions. Anything could happen from here.
I'll say it was both exactly what you know it's going to be, but also surprisingly better than what I kind of expected, I guess.
I think I pretty much agree, because you know exactly what you're getting into. This isn't a show that's going to show you something you've never seen before.
Yeah.
However, the cliches that it delivers on in a really appealing way that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's definitely going for fun. I wasn't sure, like, with the obvious absurdity of the name of the show, I wasn't sure how tongue-in-cheek this was going to be, or just how over-the-top. Like, it seemed like it's going to be really over-the-top from the trailer going into it, and it certainly was, in many regards, over-the-top as fuck. But I wasn't sure how, like, self-parody it would be. It's definitely not self-parody. It's definitely, like...
Not extensively.
I can't imagine... I'm not sure if it's, like, how much parody there is in the source material, because I haven't
we haven't read
obviously.
The webtoon, so...
So I'm not sure if this is sort of in the One Punch Man vein of, like, let's take something that was pretty sincere and sort of give it this adaptation that's like overcompensatingly, like, ridiculous to kind of meet it sincerely at where it wants to be. Like, it wants to be this big over the top shonen thing, so let's give it what it sought to be, you know?
I don't catch a lot of self-seriousness from
I
this
definitely
show.
didn't. Like, I'm not saying that it's super self-serious. I'm saying that it's not a parody.
Oh, it's not, like, it's not a parody.
Not that
like,
it's up its own ass or, like,
satirical.
Taking itself seriously. Just in the way that, like, they weren't going out of their way to make, like, a satirical shonen, you know? It is just a shonen in terms of, like, how they approach it. They're not doing a parody.
It's shonen in Korea.
Yeah, which, that to me is the most interesting part of it. We're seeing this new era of adapting manhwa and Korean materials, and this one to me I think is more important than Tower of God as a step forward for that, both because it's being treated really well by a good studio, and that there's a huge hype around it, but also that this is an anime that takes place in Korea, in Seoul, and these are Korean characters with Korean names, and, like, it is... absolutely embracing that.
Tower of God does have characters with Korean names, but the setting of this is literally Korea, so it feels more like it's grounded in that, like, Korean culture than Tower of God
There's no abstraction about it whatsoever. It's taking place, like, in a realistic world, which seems really important, and we're seeing this more and more through these anime that are coming out recently of the idea of integration and accepting foreign cultures, and that's a big thing going on in Japan right now. I'm sure the way has probably been paved literally by BTS, because, like, when we were in Japan,
BTS.
like, we were in Koreatown in Japan,
and
it was like, it was popping. Like, young people were flooding Koreatown. They were loving it.
All about
like,
that
Korean
shit.
Culture. Like,
they were getting the cheese dogs and everything, man.
All throughout Tokyo, it's clear that, like, Korean culture is being elevated, and, like, people are taking it seriously.
The normal Japanese zeitgeist.
And so it's like the younger generation now loves Korea versus the older generation of Japanese people fucking hate Koreans and they're racist as hell. And, like, there's been racial tension between them for forever because of the horrible things Japan did to Korea in World War II that have persisted as Japan refuses to apologize or acknowledge any of it. So it's like, to see now it's even getting into anime where it's like the younger generations are embracing Korea and their art, and it's becoming more like the younger generation not understanding, like, why the fuck is the older generation a bunch of racist dickheads? We're all people, you know?
Yeah.
We love this culture, we love their music, and why are we not working with them, you know?
Yeah, of course.
This is a step forward in that direction.
Not excusing Japan for the things that have happened in the past, but if stupid stuff like BTS mends the rift between those cultures and makes it so that they can learn to, like, come together, then that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's just a matter of appealing to younger generations so that the old racists die out eventually and then the culture can shift, you know? That's how it has to happen, and art is such a powerful way of appealing to younger people and getting them interested in these other cultures.
Yeah, connecting that culture to other cultures.
Like Korea over the past 10 years has like no one knew fuck about South Korea before, and through K-pop and just like constantly hearing about Korea, now everyone kind of knows about Korea, you know?
Yeah,
and it's
they're
gonna
in
get stronger and
everyone's
stronger.
pop culture subconscious, regardless of if you listen to the music or indulge in the culture or whatever.
Yeah. So I think we're seeing a very positive movement in anime, and I think anime is kind of at the forefront of that. And like when you listen to interviews with the people creating these things, like with Tokyo Sinks 2020, it's like they are actively trying to put that message into anime now. Like it's not like this happens to be a thing they're throwing in. It's like they want cultural integration in anime. Yeah. With BNA, the staff went out of their way to work with Western artists and stuff because they're trying to get away from like what anime is and like being just this Japanese thing and like trying to get out of their cultural space, which is somehow the most interesting part of The God of High School. We haven't even talked about what the fuck happened yet, but I kind of like, to me it was like thinking about it, I'm like, this is the most interesting thing going on with this show. Everything else is just kind of like
it's icing on the cake.
If it took place in Tokyo, like the plot would be no different whatsoever. It's just interesting to see like that embrace of having an anime set in Korea, like unapologetically, and being like, this is what we're doing now, you know? Yeah. We're embracing this culture.
I think it'll be really cool if we can have like otaku culture on the forefront of like that progressive movement in Japan.
Yeah. Which, who knows, you know, we're not Japanese, we don't know.
Yeah, obviously we don't live in Japan, but it would be cool.
But I have decent, you know, cursory knowledge of these things, and I've done some research on it. So it's
I have approximate knowledge of many things.
Yeah, but art typically paves the way in progressive movements, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing some good in anime, and it just seems like for these things to come out like back to back, season to season, like it's very clearly something that they're actively, like it's an active discussion being had right now, you know. Because maybe we could retroactively look back at some anime and find those things, but it just seems like right now it's like,
really being pushed as a narrative in the industry in a lot of different shows right now.
Certainly an interesting time. But anyway,
The
God of High School.
About the actual show.
What the fuck was this about?
As I step down from my soapbox about otaku leading the cultural change. God of High School is just a shonen story about a tournament that happens in high school in Korea, and whoever wins this tournament is the god of high school, and they get a wish granted by the powers that be.
Wowee!
I've never heard this plot before.
So, like, we're introduced to the main character. He's basically Ash Ketchum at the beginning. But then there's, like, the scene, they did a scene really well where, like, there's this long bike chase where, like, the main character sees this old lady get her purse snatched, and he, like, creates this backstory for her in his head that this woman is trying to, like, take care of her grandchild's medical bills.
Surgery.
And so he's like, oh, fuck, I gotta get that purse back. And then there's this long chase, and then he runs into Misty, and Misty knocks him off his bike, and is like, oh, you slammed your bike into my face. And then he's like, but we gotta save this old lady. And she's the story,
like,
too.
Oh, yeah, I'll help, dog.
So they go try to save the lady. There's a fun, very well animated sequence of
the bike chase is really
motorcycle bike chase. Like, there's a guy on a motorcycle. They're chasing him on just a normal bike. It's got some pretty good gags. It was very, like, I could just picture being at an anime con and how much people would fucking love this first episode. Where it's like, this is not my thing whatsoever, but I can imagine being younger and being really excited about it. Mm-hmm. And, like, I can picture every, like, regular-ass anime fan in a convention hall losing their mind.
Cheering.
Okay. About flashbacks.
Laughing hysterically. It's got, like, all of those great, like, punctual fanfare moments where it's just kind of hitting those, like, very classic shonen first episode beats in like a perfect punchy way.
It's very nostalgic in that way.
Yeah, very nostalgic. And interesting editing choices, sometimes fucking obnoxious, but like it's going for a very modern style. I like the integration of like people live streaming constantly and stuff like that, and like people watching the matches live streamed. That was interesting. Good look in terms of like how people would actually consume this shit these days, which is they would just be live streaming it on their fucking iPads on the bus or whatever.
Yeah. I actually, I mean, you know, they're pretty boilerplate main characters, the main three. Like your main dude is the Naruto, the super optimistic, you know, I want to be a powerful guy kind of dude. You know, the girl is your Misty, and then the guy is like the cool. He seems a little bit older, even though he's presumably also in high school. But he's, you know, he's like your Brock. But I like them well enough. They seem fun.
They're your Ash, Misty, Brock. They're your Naruto, Sakura. You know, Sasuke. Like they're your main three. You know their they don't even have to fucking say anything. Like you know the personalities. The last guy, literally, the bike is driving through and he comes up and he punches a guy and they look at him and you know who, like, what he is immediately. He doesn't say a word. You just know exactly the dynamic. And then they cut to
cool
like
guy.
the eye catcher and it shows like the three of their faces. Like, okay, there it is. Like,
I mean,
we get it.
All you need to do is look at their character design and you know what those characters are.
So it's like it's not trying to hide from like its tropiness at all. And then we get into the start of this tournament where I guess the prerequisite match is just like there's 100 people and it's like you guys just have a battle royale.
Yep.
Just Fortnite it out. Just kick each other's ass.
Every 2 minutes the circle gets smaller. You guys figure it out.
And I have some mixed feelings about the way the fights in the show are portrayed.
I don't think you're not supposed to be really emotionally invested in this fight. It's more dick waving to show the animation.
But it's like, it's the kind of choreography where sometimes it works and sometimes it's just flailing. Like, it's just nothing. You have no sense of really the space at all. And it's just like a character kind of like just wiggling their legs around. Like, it's like they think kicking is just this act where you float around and your legs just go like, woo, 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 woo. And it's just like lots of characters just kind of bouncing around, kicking. There's like one scene where there's the Chinese martial artist guy and they take a lot of detail in like showing his movements. And I'm like, that's the kind of fighting I like in these kinds of shows where it's like, if you're going to have a fist fighting show, you have to take a lot of consideration into each movement and like space and how the characters are interacting. And like most of this was just like flailing around. And then it's, you know, maybe it's just an episode 1 thing because there's a giant brawl and like they're just owning noobs, you know.
It's just showing you like, look at these minor characters. They all get their little moment. There's like wrestling girl and she fucking like suplexes a guy and you're like, all right, cool.
But it was very much like key animation, foreground, like 2-dimensional things happening on a side by side with moving CGI background, you know?
Yeah.
Like it felt like that style for a lot of it, and I was like, I don't know where this is gonna go. Hopefully these fights get better choreography.
Well, I'm sure once
we're
one-on-ones, dealing with fights between important characters, that dynamic is going to change.
And it seems like the kind of thing where it's gonna lean really heavily into like each character's fighting style and personal technique. So like hopefully it goes in that direction really well. But it's like, you know, shows that pull it off really well. Yu Yu Hakusho, like, you always have a great sense of space and rules and, like, what's going on and stakes. Like, the fights in that are really great. Yu Yu Hakusho fights usually don't have a ton of action. It's just, like, each point of action has a lot of meaning, you know? Like, it'll be a big deal, where you understand a lot of the times that some of these characters, like, could finish each other in one move. So, like, how's that move gonna go down? Yeah. Especially, like, a Kurama fight are always the best, where it's, like...
It's a real standoff kind of mental games before there's any physical action.
The characters have like very distinct abilities that are communicated really well, so I hope it goes in that direction. Or if you're gonna go like a Hajime no Ippo type direction in terms of like a fist fighting martial arts style show, Ippo's fights are really incredible. Like, I hope it goes in that direction, especially being Mappa. I know they can do that. I mean, they did what's it called, right? The Dog.
Megalobox? Dog.
They did Megalobox, right?
Yeah.
Or was that Madhouse?
No, Mappa.
Okay, yeah.
Pretty confident.
So like if it takes it in that direction, even though Megalobox wasn't as good as Ippo with the fights, you can't touch Ippo with fucking fighting, bro.
I think for someone like me, the technicality of a fight like a fight in Ippo doesn't matter, so I'm fine with this.
Yeah. Well, it's just, you know, It depends. Because it depends on how much screen time is going to be dedicated to fighting. Like, if a lot of the time, which it seems like that's where this is going to go, if a lot of the time you're watching this, people are just fighting, you want the fights to be good, and you want to understand what the fuck is happening.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And not just have a bunch of people flying around kicking, you know?
I just don't want it to end up in, like, Baki territory,
Yeah,
where the
well,
fights are
Baki's-
so
yeah.
drawn out and so boring, and everyone is so strong, and they can't be killed, and blah, 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 and you're like,
Yeah.
Then
Baki
this
takes
means
it too
nothing to
far,
me.
you know? Baki takes it too far. Yeah, but I guess that's what I have to say about that. I mean, it was fun. Like, I wasn't bored.
Yeah.
It was definitely a lot more enjoyable than, like, Tower of God, for example. It could go either way. I'm
It
hoping
could totally go either
Like,
way.
it feels like sort of a High School of the Dead approach, where it's like, let's take this fucking ridiculous premise and just, like, do it
Run
real
with
well and animate it real well and just, like, try to have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be popular in the same way that is.
Yeah, I think that would be the best case scenario,
Yeah.
is understand the source material you're working with and just perpetrate that as skillfully and as and like just honestly as you can.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll be honest, I like the aesthetic of these character designs. I like the like
don't
red
hate 'em.
nose, red ears. Like I like that. I think
they're
it's
certainly
neat.
unique. I don't
It's
love the
better
main character's
than-
eyes. I think they're a little too much.
I think it's a little goofy, but
I think it's the kind of
really
thing
don't
that
care.
looks good in like a manga form, but
like,
like
yeah,
in
the comic
anime, I
form.
don't know. It's just kind of weird.
I don't know. It doesn't really bug me, and I definitely prefer that to seeing the same fucking generic ass limp
Yeah.
anime boy
Oh, yeah.
Kirito that you see in every anime now.
The style is fine, and they all have baggy clothes, and that's interesting, and that can translate well into fighting. I just hope that the aesthetics of the action stay on point and are readable in a way that makes you feel like you're not just going to zone out watching a bunch of things fly around and kick each other. And I hope that the characters develop some sort of personality
Sure.
beyond just being tropes, which hopefully they do. You know, who knows?
it's only been one
But yeah,
episode,
it's only one
so.
episode. Like, as far as the first episode goes, they did as much as they could do.
Yeah.
And I think they got us into it with a fun scene with that bike scene, and that
The
was like
bike scene really sells
that was
you.
the best way they could have done it, because it was immediately into something that didn't really take itself seriously, and it was kind of just flexing fun animation. So that was a great way to start it off.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, looking
yeah,
forward to it a surprising
fun.
amount. We weren't just here to shit all over it.
Yeah, I mean, I had no expectations of this because, again, I don't really read webtoons.
Yeah.
Tower of God didn't leave a great taste
I mean, you
in
were
my
groaning
mouth.
and cringing, and you didn't even want to give this a shot.
The trailer
so.
was a little
Be
bit. I was
real,
like,
you were like,
I don't
why are we
know.
even?
I don't
This
know,
sucks. And I'm like,
man.
you're gonna give it a shot. Like, this is what everyone's gonna be fucking talking
Yeah,
about. So you
of course
might as well
everyone
watch
is going
it.
to be talking about this, but pretty fun.
Like Tower of God after episode 2, we could not continue watching that. It was just like I could not give half a fuck. This one, I'm at least like, even if it's really dumb, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Hopefully, the whole time.
Yeah,
So,
that's the thing,
yeah.
is you
but
don't
it might
have
be fun
to
in like a fucking Shokugeki no Soma way, where
Yeah.
it's like Soma is
shonen.
At
It is
no
as shonen
point,
as shonen can be.
it's never trying to be high art. It is fucking stupid. But it's like, it does what
it
it does
is
so
fun.
well, and it is so much fun that it doesn't really matter, you know?
Exactly.
You're willing to forgive all of the retarded tropey bullshit because it's like, that's not what it's about. It's about having fun and watching the cooking and getting the big boners, you know?
So,
yeah.
God of High School, give it a try. Maybe you'll like it. You'll probably like it. It's
Yeah.
it's easy to like.
Or you won't, and you know, whatever.
Yeah.
You won't be bored,
We'll
hopefully.
probably keep watching it until we decide that it isn't worth our time. But
Yeah,
who knows?
but it's not too hard to keep up with 2 anime a season, so...
Which
there
is
you
what
go.
we usually do
Yeah,
anyway.
exactly.
Oh
All right.
boy.
Bye!
Bye.
Bye, bye-bye.